ourselves, and what other opportunities are available for us in Toastmasters. This, to me, is what the Distinguished Toastmaster Award is all about. But one big question I think we have to answer is, why on earth do we want to get a Distinguished Toastmaster Award? Is it just letters after our name, just a title, just a plaque? Well, I gave this presentation to another group in October, and I put out a message on the Toastmasters member Facebook page asking people why people should get a Toastmaster, a Distinguished Toastmaster. Why should people get a DTM? And here's a few of the responses that I received. I desire to be a distinguished communicator. Short and sweet, right? Another one, my DTM was a result of stepping up and being involved in Toastmasters. It was never the goal, it was a result. And I really like this, because how many of us joined to get a DTM? Probably none of us, because we didn't even know what that was when we joined. We joined to become better communicators or leaders, to get more comfortable with speaking. And then we find out about different opportunities in Toastmasters and how we can develop and grow by taking advantage of those opportunities. Here's one more. Much progress just happens because you're keeping on with it. Self-improvement in communications, leadership, organizing, discovering one's own difficulties, and working to improve them. And this, I think, is an interesting aspect of the DTM. It's really nothing you set out to do, but you end up getting there because of opportunities that you come across and opportunities to give back to Toastmasters who help you, have helped you. It's interesting to me is often we join Toastmasters and we want to make ourselves better. And then there's kind of a turn I see where people start to realize, hey, I can help others just like others helped me when I was new in Toastmasters. And that's what the Distinguished Toastmaster Education Award is all about. One last one, to challenge myself. Because some of the things you have to do to get a DTM, they're not as easy as giving a speech. There might be conflict, there might be challenges, and it can be tough to achieve a DTM. Let's look at the requirements. Now, I like to divide up these requirements into these three areas. These are my areas. This is something I came up with, just to simply divide some of the requirements so that we can better understand them. There's an education portion, a leadership portion, and a mentoring portion. I put education on the bottom because that's where we all start. We come into Toastmasters and we start giving speeches and doing roles. The education requirements for a distinguished Toastmaster is to complete 2 separate paths. Now, does anyone here have more than one path? You can put your hand up. Everyone's turned their video off. You can put your reactions hand up. Anybody? Or a thumbs up or something. Let's see. All right, Meltem has. Tracy, I hope, has. We start out with one path. To achieve a DTM, you do need to complete 2 paths. Sometimes what people do is once they get to those upper level projects that take longer, then they get another path and they start doing the speeches in the level 1 and level 2 that don't take as long. So that can be one way to get that second path going. And then the DTM project. Now, this is similar to the high performance leadership project, where you want to put a team together, design a project. It's its intent is to have you take the learnings from your two paths and do a project showing what you've learned and really using the skills that you've learned and developed from those two paths. The DTM project isn't in your base camp until you request it. And to request it, you have to have one path completely done and at least 3 levels of your second path done. Then you contact Toastmasters International and they'll put the DTM project in your base camp. You don't have to have a guidance committee like you do for the high performance leadership project, but it is about having a team, designing a project, and completing that project. So that's the education portion. Any questions on the education portion of the requirements? You can put it in the chat, or you can take yourself off mute and ask. I don't see any questions. Now the leadership. Often we start out, we don't even know there's leaders of a club. Then we find out, oh, there's a president and some vice presidents, a treasurer, a secretary, sergeant at arms. Serving as a club officer helps you develop some leadership skills, and it helps the club be a successful club. The requirement for the DTM is to serve as a club officer for 12 months. During that time, help prepare the club success plan and attend your district officer training. Now, I don't know in Turkey if all your clubs have 12-month officer terms or if you also have 6-month officer terms. Meltem, can you answer that?
Yes, we have 12 months.
So 12 months? All right. So serve for a full 12 months, and then during that time, help prepare the club success plan and attend officer training. And it doesn't matter which leadership role. You don't have to be president to fulfill this. It can be any club officer. And I should say one of the 7. The president, vice president education, membership PR, or secretary or treasurer, or the sergeant at arms. Because I know with some clubs, they have special roles that they've added, such as maybe Zoom master or webmaster, and those wouldn't count for the leadership requirement of the DTM. They're very helpful to have in a club, but they don't count for this. Then the second part of the leadership is to serve a 1-year term as a district officer. And we have with us today Division H Director Meltem. So she is serving as a district officer. Meltem, did you also serve as an area director?
Yes, last year I was area director. It's true.
All right. So she'll have a credit as serving area director, and she'll have credit as a district officer for being division director. The most common district officer used for a DTM is the area director, because that's what we need the most of. How many areas are there in your division, Meltem?
We have 3 areas.
All right, so 3.
3 or 4 clubs.
Oh, in each area? All right, great. So that means next year, starting July 1st, they're going to need some area directors. Start thinking about if you'd like to be an area director. Now you might think, oh, I could never do that. And I know this because that's what I thought. After joining Toastmasters, I started exploring, and when I learned about the DTM, I thought, I could never get my DTM. I could never be an area director. But a few years after I joined, someone came to me and said, Lori, we need an area director next year. Actually, she did it at the end of May. They needed it starting July 1st. Would you do it? Now, if she'd asked me before, I would have said, no, I can't do it. I can't be an area director. But at that moment in my life, I was looking for a challenge. And I thought, I don't know if I'll be good at it. But I agreed. I thought I would try. And that's what Toastmasters is all about. Helping us go beyond what we think we can do. Because we can do so much more. Toastmasters give us the confidence and the opportunity to really develop ourselves if we're willing to be open and take advantage of the opportunities we have. To be an area director, you're in contact with the different clubs in your area, and you're the liaison, the link between those clubs and the district leadership. And you give them the information from the district leadership. You help them because you want them to be clubs that last 50 or 100 years. You want them to really be successful and grow. You make club visits. It's required to do one in the summer months, summer, fall months, and one in the winter, springtime. And then you put in a report on those clubs and at the Toastmasters International website. You help with contests because you'll have an area contest in your area. And your division director will ask you to help with the officer training and other events. Meltem, I'm going to ask you, how was it being an area director? Did you enjoy it? And what was the number one learning that you had from being an area director?
I think understanding club culture. Each club culture has different value, different character, different personality, different DNA. So be aware of that culture and learn from their culture. Over to you, Lori.
I agree with that. It really is interesting. I'm in two clubs. One's a community and one's a corporate club. And I like you saying they have different DNA. They definitely do have different DNA. And something that might work in one club won't necessarily work in another club just because their perspective is different. But it's interesting it kind of opens you up. And you might take some tips from one club and try it in another club just because you have a new perspective. So thank you for that, Meltem. Any questions on leadership? Now, if you don't want to be an area director, there are some other district officers. There's the division director, as Meltem is this year. There's also administrative manager of a district. There's the finance manager, if you have some finance experience. There's also the top three, which is what's referred to often as the trio, the program quality director, the club growth director, and the district director. Now, some of those do have some requirements, but there's a lot of different opportunity for leadership. And if you're thinking now, that's not for me, I can't do it, that's okay. Just be open to possibilities. Now, mentoring is the third area. And this is the part of the mentoring. Serve successfully as a club mentor or coach. So not both of those, just one or the other. And then serve successfully as a club sponsor or conduct a speechcraft or youth leadership program. That's a lot of stuff there, so we're going to break it down a little bit. It can be confusing. What's a club sponsor? What's a club mentor? What's a club coach? So I've broken it down a little bit. The club sponsor and mentor, they work with prospective and new clubs. So new clubs that are getting underway. A club sponsor helps start a new club and gets it chartered. For example, holding demo meetings, a club sponsor might be involved with that, doing some PR, getting prospective members to a demo meeting. If it's a corporate club you're trying to start, the club sponsor might work with the HR department or whatever department that you're working with to tell them the value, let them know what Toastmasters can do for them to try to start that club in that company. So a club sponsor works before the club is started to get it started. Sometimes you have one demo meeting and you get 20 people signed up, which is the minimum amount to start a new club, and you're off and running with your new club. But sometimes you don't get enough people signed up at that first demo meeting. And so you have some other meetings, and those that are interested start meeting. and we'll start meeting. And so you tell them about Toastmasters. They can start giving speeches. There's a whole process that's on the Toastmasters site on starting those new clubs. Now, once the club is chartered, meaning they're officially a Toastmasters club with their club charter, they've submitted officers, they can get their paths. Then the club mentor works with those clubs, those brand new clubs, for 6 to 12 months. Because we really want, when a new club starts, we want it to be successful. And those early times is very crucial. It's kind of like being a parent to a little toddler, to a little baby, right? We need to make sure to help them get started so that club grows and becomes a thriving club that continues. And so the club mentors will probably work with the officers to help them understand their roles. It's not about necessarily telling them what to do, but helping guide them and show them the resources, because there's a lot of resources Toastmasters has, but it's just, unless you know where to go, they won't know where those resources are. Help them understand the importance of officer training and get them to officer training. Help them with their first speech contest, because they won't know how to do speech contests. Get them involved with the different activities of the area, division, and district. So a club sponsor works to help start a club, to get them chartered, and then the mentor works with a newly chartered club for 6 to 12 months. Now, clubs can have 2 club sponsors and can also have 2 club mentors. A district appoints them. If you're interested in being one or both of them, let Meltem know and she can pass it along to District 109's Club Growth Director, because they're always looking for club sponsors and club mentors. And because we're online so much now, you might be able to help with the club that's not in Turkey. Maybe you'll be able to help with clubs in other parts of your district. Of course, we want more clubs in Turkey too, don't we? We want Toastmasters to spread because we know how much it's helping us, right? Any questions on club sponsor and club mentor? You can unmute yourself if you'd like.
Lori, is there any precondition to be a sponsor or the mentor, completing the level 3 or something like that?
Nothing official. When they're looking to choose them, a district might, they want somebody who has some experience. I don't know. Sometimes districts have their own internal rules for stuff. That's not necessarily on the Toastmasters side. So I would say if you're interested, let them know. They might do a training, or they might have someone work with you, or maybe they'll even pair up a more experienced Toastmaster with someone who's not as experienced to make sure everything goes well. There's no official guidelines to be a club sponsor or mentor, other than you have to be a Toastmaster.
All right, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Any other questions or comments? Now, Tracy, you said you've started a number of clubs. How crucial are those sponsors and mentors to help those clubs succeed?
They are like the athletic trainers on a club, on a soccer team, on a football team. You have to have people that are in addition to your management and to your leaders to make sure that the club is healthy. So the sponsors and mentors are very important. One rule of thumb I used for the sponsors and mentors were that the sponsors had to be people that were very knowledgeable about what's going on in Toastmasters. I would never put somebody brand new as a sponsor. However, as a mentor, I would put somebody that had maybe a year or 2 in Toastmasters that could actually help the club while they have those other support pieces in place. So both of those, Madam Lori, is very important. I would say for in Turkey, which again is where I got my start in Toastmasters back in 1995, there's probably a whole plethora of untapped resources out there that you all can start a ton of new clubs. You can probably start a lot of corporate clubs, of course, with all the corporations that are there. And I would just say, find a way to make sure that your existing people that are involved stay involved and that they get new people involved slowly and that together you all just build and create a whole nother foundation of members of Toastmasters. So yes, sponsors and mentors are very crucial to your corporate clubs.
Now, thank you for that. Thank you for that feedback, Tracy. Now, it can be tough. You know, these roles sometimes are easy. If you've got sometimes a corporate club, they say, yes, this is great. Here's 20, 25, 30 people. Let's get going. It might not take long to start that new club. Sometimes it can take a year or two to get that 20th person signed up to start it. So you can, again, it's about leadership and growing. Being a club mentor, again, depends on the support from the district with it. And if you have 2 mentors, that's always good. So that way the burden doesn't fall just on one person. I was a club mentor for a club a couple of years ago, and one of them quit. So that left me, and then another one came on board, and we kind of the first club mentor was, we were going to divide it up by officer roles. She would help certain ones and I would help the others. Then when she quit and the other one came on board, I didn't even see the other one for 6 months. And then she said, oh, I better start attending, because if you're not attending the meetings for the new club, you don't get credit. You have to attend for at least 6 months to get credit for it. And there was a lot of drama with this club. Right before I came on board, they had just chartered. The VPE, Vice President of Education, quit. And I helped the new one get going because she had just joined herself. And then the president quit. And there was lots of drama with it. And it was just, I almost quit Toastmasters. That's how bad it was. But you know, I pushed through it. And I learned a lot working with that club. Any other questions or comments on club mentor or club sponsor? This, and I'm proud to say though that this club is still an active club. All right, now the coach part, a club coach works with existing clubs. The club coaches works to reinvigorate a struggling club. A struggling club that can have a club coach is a club that has 12 or fewer members in the club, official members. Now that may not be all 12 attending the meetings, but on the reports, if a club has 12 or fewer club members, they can ask for a club coach. To be a club coach, you have to be a Toastmaster, of course. You cannot be a member of that club to be their club coach. Now, after you're appointed club coach, it is possible to join the club, and some do, saying, I want to be part of it, to feel like we're all in it together. And some say, well, I don't want to join because I want them to really have the success that they're all joining together. It's their club. So there's 2 schools of thought on that. I've been told that starting next year, club coaches will not be allowed to join the clubs they're working with. I haven't seen that in writing, but that's what my district director told us a couple of months ago. If you're interested in being a club coach, and there can be 2 assigned to a club, again, let Meltem know and she'll pass it up the chain of command. Club coaches, there's some nice material on the Toastmasters site. Let me look that up real quick. That helps you kind of analyze where the club is. Your job isn't, as a club coach, isn't to say, this is what you have to do. Although maybe you might want to, just a little more gently. It's to maybe make suggestions, follow are you guys familiar with the moments of truth? I don't think we've talked about that. Look at what they do in their club, comparing with the moments of truth. All right, I'm going to find you a link to put in the chat about this. Club coach program here. I'll put a link in there that'll have some information about being a club coach. There's a guide on club coach troubleshooting guide, kind of gives you a good idea of what to look for and how to take action. For example, let's say you visit the club and all they're doing is table topics. Nobody's doing any speeches. So you might talk to the officers, you know, what's going on. We want people to give speeches. That's one of the ways we learn in Toastmasters, and maybe find out why. Maybe they say we all hate pathways. And then you work with them. Or maybe they say, well, we don't have our paths. We don't know what to do. Maybe they need a little guidance. Maybe they need some encouragement. Maybe it's a small club and they need some fresh speakers just to get that energy back. And you have some people come from another club to give some speeches just to get a little more energy in the club. You can, as I said, you can have up to 2. I'm going to put a link in the chat here for you, and that has some resources on being a club coach. Some districts train people that they assign as club coaches. The club does have to accept you being a club coach. If they say, we don't want to work with Lori, then they're not going to assign me as their club coach. Or if they say, a club can say, we don't want a club coach, we're fine, we don't want anybody else here, then a district has to respect that and hope that they're able to hang on or turn their club around. There are some videos on YouTube about being a club coach that could be helpful. You're just kind of coming in from the outside and observing and making some suggestions about things they could do in their club. When you're assigned as a club coach, you have 2 program years to get them to being distinguished so that you can get credit as a club coach. So if you were assigned right now, say you were assigned right now to my Twin City Toastmasters, because we're at 11 members, I think, so we would qualify as a club coach. And if by the end of June of next year, we were distinguished, and being distinguished meaning not just having at least 5 goals completed, but to have the minimum number of memberships, of members. So I think our base was 12. If I'm correct, that is 12, then our minimum by the end of the year to be distinguished would have to be 17, a net gain of 5. So if by the end of June we had at least 17 members and we had at least 5 goals, we would be distinguished. Then if you had been our club coach, you would get credit as club coach and could use that for your Distinguished Toastmaster Award. Now, what if we get to the end of June and we have 15 members? Even if we have all 10 goals, we're not distinguished unless we have both the goals and the minimum number of members, which if our base was 12, then we have to have a net gain of 5, and that would be 17. So you wouldn't get credit, but you could work with the club for another Toastmaster year to get us to that distinguished point in both goals and membership. And that's the thing about being a club coach. You may work with that club. If they don't get to the distinguished level, you don't get credit. And some people say, well, they think they have about a 50-50 rate because there's some people that really like to work with clubs. So sometimes you're going to get them there or help them get there and get credit, and sometimes you may not. So keep that in mind for that. But it can be very rewarding if it's successful. And even if it's not successful, if they're really trying and at least making progress, that can be successful. And then that can be satisfying as well. If you can really, if you see that they're energized and they're working toward their club and they're really fighting for it. Any question on club coach? It's a broad topic, but if you're interested, see, you know who, Melton, our lovely division director, and some districts have trainings and different webinars on it, because it really is an important role, because we want all of our clubs to do well. All right. Back to our slides. That's a club coach. Now, there is something special going on now to provide additional recognition for coaches for this current Toastmaster year. If you're a club coach, and if it's successful and meets these criteria by the end of June of 2022, you'll get credit both as a coach and you'll get credit as a district leader, as if you had been an area director or division director. If you're interested in this, again, let Meltem know, and they'll go through we're kind of closing in. It's almost getting to where it's less than 6 months, because for this special club coach district leader credit, you have to serve a minimum of 6 months in the coach role. The club has to meet to be distinguished or better. And just for this special club coach / district leader credit, the club has to get at least 20 members, not just a net of 5. So a little different criteria just for this to get double credit for the coaching and credit for the district leader credit. Let Meltem know if you're interested, and let her know quick, because you would need to be assigned as a coach by the 1st of January in order to take advantage of this. All right, we've gone through 3 areas: the education and the leadership. We're still talking about mentoring. And another one of the requirements was to either be a club coach or lead a youth leadership program or Speechcraft. And now you guys, I'm going to start with Speechcraft first, because I understand you guys are doing a Speechcraft. It's after these sessions. Who is organizing this Speechcraft? Who's the organizer for the one you guys are doing?
Our area director.
Oh, you did, Nurbanu?
No, our area director.
Oh, your area director? All right. Is he or she here today?
No, unfortunately, not here.
Not here? All right. For Speechcraft, then, are you guys doing the online Speechcraft?
Yeah.
Right, it's a series of workshops, if you will, 4, 6, or 8. And the club purchases the online Speechcraft module, like that is for 5 members, and then you buy additional modules if you have more people. It is always said that it's the best way to get new members in a club, because people are attending that, they're learning, because there's some educational speeches in there, plus they're giving speeches, right? And they're doing evaluations, so they're getting a good sense of what Toastmasters is like and what it can do for them. Now, how many Speechcrafters do you have in the Speechcraft class this time?
That varies, but the final number is 4, as far as I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, 4. All right. And often, people will join a club after Speechcraft. Sometimes they do. We've done Speechcraft twice in one of the clubs I'm in. And one time I think we had one join at our club, and then one joined at my corporate club because she worked there, and it was easier for her to come there during lunch hour because of where she lived. And then we held it again, and no one joined. So you don't know if people will join, but it can be a great way to get new members. I think it goes back to PR too. We weren't able to attract that many people to our Speechcraft, and we're thinking about doing one next year, next spring. And we've been thinking about how do we reach out? How do we get people to come to Speechcraft? And we're going to take a little different approach. We're going to put together a pitch and try to take it to some of the organizations or companies in our county here. So we're going to get some materials from Toastmasters, probably create our own materials, have a couple of people try to meet with them and make a pitch. So we're going to show them what Toastmasters can do for their organization. And here's a way they can try it out. So we're gonna try that and see how that works. How did you guys get your speech crafters? How did you advertise, or where did they come from? Nurbani, where did you guys get your speech crafters?
Lori, actually, some of the rules says that the members should be not the members of Toastmasters, but some renews happened, and some new members also accept as speech crafters. So in our scenario, we have actually new members and one attendee from London team, and he's experienced actually. But you know that Toastmaster International give one extra pass gift a year before, so most of the experienced attendees attended to our speechcraft to complete the first three level actually. As you know that this actually corresponds to the first 3 level when you attend the 8 week. So that kind of win and win situation exists. So that's why some experienced one also attend.
Okay. So you guys are familiar with Speechcraft. I'm not going to go into it more since you're in the middle of doing it. The other part of that was the youth leadership program. And that is something, let's see, that has been part of Toastmasters a long time. I've not been in one myself, though one of my clubs, I'd like one of my clubs to do it for a group that we're involved in. It's similar to Speechcraft in that, in one way, because it's the participants have a booklet. It's not online yet like Speechcraft is, but participants have a booklet and they have meetings, either 1 to 2 hour sessions. I'm going to put this link in the chat here. I'll have to do it after. I'll put this link in the chat on the Toastmasters website. And it has them go through different aspects of communication and leadership. It's really focused on helping them do both, because the kids, and this is younger than 18, they elect officers amongst themselves. They run the meetings. Youth leadership isn't done in a club meeting like Speechcraft is. They're holding their own meetings. And you have one person be the coordinator, and who would get the credit for the Distinguished Toastmaster. And then it's always good to have maybe another 1 or 2 work with it. They wouldn't get credit, but if you have 1 or 2 that way, in case the coordinator can't be there, there's someone who the kids know and who's familiar with the group to help. But it's a program that, again, helps them learn speaking skills, doing table topics, the impromptu, helps them learn how to run a meeting, even talks about parliamentary procedure. The coordinator has a book, the participants have a book, and you find them by, either a club sponsors it, and maybe there's kids out of school, or maybe kids in a mosque or a church that someone goes to, or maybe, I don't know how else you would find kids, other organization. Now, we were talking before we started this session, there may be some guidelines or people you have to reach out to if you're trying to do it at a school. Someone mentioned the Minister of Education. And you take those kids through those 8 weeks to help them develop, and then have a big party when they graduate to make it fun. Now, sometimes after doing a youth leadership program, they start a club with those kids. It's not a Toastmasters club, because you have to be at least 18 to be a Toastmaster, but it's called a gavel club. And they can continue to meet, and they have some materials. They might still use the traditional education materials, so they can continue their learning. just like we hope the people that are in Speechcraft join the club to continue their learning. When you go through a youth leadership program, they can continue their learning as well. I have a few links that I'll send to Meltem on the youth leadership program. It might, if you guys are really interested in, it might be worth getting, purchasing the workbook and the coordinator's guide, just so you can read up on it and have a better idea. But I will send you, Meltem, some links on that so that you can see more about that. But it's very similar, I would say, to Speechcraft in that it's a series of meetings that goes through different communication and leadership skills, but it's directed toward a younger audience. But I've heard a lot of good things about it, and I'd like to do it for a group that we have here. So back to our mentoring, serve successfully as a club mentor or coach, and then also serve either as a club sponsor or conduct a Speechcraft or youth leadership program. Those were all the requirements. We always start out with education because we start giving speeches. So everyone started out on the path to a DTM. Even if you're not sure if you want to achieve a DTM, keep the faith and be open to possibilities, to be open to how you could push yourself and how you could grow, maybe in areas or ways you're not sure you can at this time. In these 3 areas of education, leadership, and mentoring. One more quote from that group who submitted why they got a DTM. The experience will be amazing. The honor of getting the highest recognition will be rewarding. So I encourage you all to work toward your DTM, and someday you'll get in the mail from Toastmasters International your DTM plaque that will represent all the hard work, all the mentoring, and all the growth that you've achieved. I'll turn it over to you, Madam Division Director.
Thank you. Thank you